Hello, welcome to this YouTube live. We're starting with discussing further the Atma board. The plan is to finish Atma board today and to get to discuss and go over the whole text today. So that is the aim and the purpose. So yesterday we looked at uh, ego, neti neti, and meditative practices. And basically, we've got some practice that we can utilize and learn from. So, if you want to know more, I would say check out yesterday's episode. That would be really great. And that can help you in further enhancing your understanding of this wonderful text that is called Atma Bodh. So, we'll be continuing on with that. And if you can just give me a second while I um, okay. Right, so let's have a look. So we're going to look at verse 40, and this is Atma Bodh by Adi Shankaracharya. And and verse 40 is one who knows or is trying to know this supreme reality leaves all the distinctions of form, name, caste, etc. He remains established in his own reality, which is all full, conscious, and blissful. This is very interesting because a lot of people they ask, the importance of the caste system, or they ask what importance does race have. But in spirituality, none of these things have a real impact. They're not our real identity. They're the identity that we have that is temporary. So those who attain this reality never stay without it, even for a second. So, once you have been caught by this beautiful non-dual reality, there is no way you're going to go back to duality. I cannot believe for a second that anyone can turn around and say that they have approached Advaita Vedanta and then gone back into duality, or believe in the dualistic philosophy. For me, that's impossible, because once you experience this non-dual reality, you cannot discard it. It becomes the only thing available to you, the only thing that is worthy of your time and attention. So that's for sure. And once you understand this non-dual reality, then everything which has a form, a color, caste, nation, nationality, um, gender, everything, we discard all that, because not saying that these things still aren't there on the temporary level. They are still there, they still function, and they still have their importance. But it has nothing to do with the non-dual reality. It has nothing to do with Brahman, nothing to do with God. So if anyone has really established themselves in this non-dual reality, they should not be perpetuating the divisions of form, of color, of gender, of sexuality, of um, caste. They should not be doing any of that. They should be seeing everyone as this one non-dual reality. The thing about this non-dual reality, if you still see another, that means it's not yet a reality for you. It may be something you intellectually understand, but not something you experientially have allowed to transform your vision and your life. So I would say that's something we need to understand. And that person remains established in their glory of conscious bliss. So they're always in this awareness, this blissful awareness. They're constantly in that. There is not a single moment when they are not in that bliss. They're always happy. They always have, they're always in that neutral base where nothing can affect them. No pleasure, no pain, no good, no evil. None of those things will affect such a person. No hot and cold. All these pair of opposites. None of those will affect them. Hello, Terry, on TikTok. Nice to see you. So that person w- is always in bliss, is always in happiness. So nothing more or nothing else remains to be achieved by them. What else is there to be achieved by someone who understands and knows that they are this non-dual reality? What achievement can you get in life? Even the highest achievement in the world will not be something that will take you on an ego trip, basically. I'm not saying that you will not enjoy the things that you achieve. What I'm saying is that you will, at the end of the day, more or less just be not nonchalant about it, but like not affected. You won't become egoic from it. You won't have a big head from this. Um, so yeah, once you have this non-dual reality, what else is left for you to achieve? Um, and then the next verse is the distinction between knower, knowledge, and the object of knowledge does not exist in the Supreme Self. As the self is of the form of non-dual conscious bliss, it shines by itself. Very self-explanatory. But when there is when there is an external object, the trio of knower, knowledge, and the object of knowledge distinctly exist. So they will still be there. They will still have an existence of some kind. However, when there is nothing external to observe, these three merge into single undivided knowledge. So you'll see the trio of that. You'll see the knower, the knowledge, and the object of knowledge. But eventually, when you go back to the non dual state, what will happen there is it becomes oneness. It becomes just a formless awareness and nothing else. And this is something that J. Krishnamurti talked about when he said the observer becomes the observed. So literally, that's what it's talking about. So in the Supreme Self, there is no knower, knowledge, and the object of knowledge. Although these three things will be there when we are functioning in this world. So that's something we need to know. There is going to be this distinct existence, but it's not going to be the full existence. It won't be what we fully are. So, in the initial stages of samadhi, which is obviously that deep, resonating calmness and kind of, you could say, super consciousness, there is some perceptible difference between the three, between knower, knowledge, and object of knowledge. The samadhi is called savikalpa, with a little bit of duality. So there's still a bit of duality. A lot of us may experience this type of samadhi. And a lot of times, what happens is when we experience this little samadhi, which can be called a satori if you're in Zen Buddhism. But what happens is people tend to think, oh, I've got it now. And uh, they stop, they stop pursuing and working upon their spirituality. They think they've got there, which is a lot like these pseudo non-dualists. That's what they do. They have one little experience and suddenly they think they've got everything. But there is still that little bit of duality there. Um, but it's through practice that this difference between knower, knowledge, and the object of knowledge disappears and gets eliminated. And that is called Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So without duality, Samadhi is the result. And the people that we know who have experienced this are people like Swami Vivekananda, Ramana Maharishi, Sri Ramakrishna. We know that these individuals have achieved this state of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And it's possible where you can have a complete non-dual um, realization, and not only a realization, I would say a non-dual awareness, and that only remains. So you can definitely achieve this. And that is the ultimate realization without any duality. And if you notice, these individuals that did have nirvikalpa samadhi, they did still continue to live on this earth. They still functioned in the world. They still had ashrams. They still went out and traveled. For example, Swami Vivekananda did so. So they still continued the actions of the world, but they had that ultimate realization. And that's the whole purpose of spirituality, is to have that ultimate realization, which is called nirvikalpa samadhi. And Adi Shankarji wants us to achieve that. So in verse 42, he says that, like this, when meditation of the self by the mind is repeatedly done, like rubbing of two wooden sticks on one another, the fire of knowledge which so arises burns down all the ignorance as its fuel. Very beautiful analogy that's used here. So once ignorance is destroyed in the fire of knowledge, in the fire of gyan, in the fire of this Atma Bodha, it cannot appear again. So whatever is to be known is known in completeness. So for example, he uses the example of two wooden sticks, and that when you rub them against each other, fire is the cause of that. So when we keep meditating on this Nirgun Brahman, when we continue to focus on this Atma, when we continue to focus on this formless awareness, and we build our life around understanding this formless awareness, then it burns down all the ignorance. What ignorance? That we are separate to this one, that we are separate to Brahman. And that is what Adi Shankarji is talking about here. So we are able to do this if we are diligent and we continue to meditate on that true self, that non-dual self that we really are. So really, it's the meditation of that formless awareness where there is no knower, knowledge, or object of knowledge. So everything dissolves and there's only this formless awareness. That is the ultimate state, and it is achievable. One can definitely experience this for sure. So, verse 43, just as the Lord of Dawn, which his name is Arun, destroys the darkness of the night before the sun rises, so does the right knowledge destroys the darkness of ignorance before the self itself arises. So this knowledge about the self destroys the ignorance before the direct experience of the self. So what the knowledge does is it destroys the ignorance. So the ignorance that we are separate to Brahman, or we are separate, we have separate existences. It gets rid of that ignorance, and therefore the direct experience of the self is there. Now, if you think about it, the direct experience of the self is always there. This formless awareness is always there. It's only when we destroy the notion that there is a me, an I that is separate. Once we get rid of that, then what shines forth? What is there that is even aware that I'm doing this? It's that formless awareness. What is the thing that is aware that I am trying to comprehend that knowledge, that gyan, awareness, that formless awareness? So once we get rid of the ignorance, we see directly that formless awareness. It's right there in front of us. It's not far. It's not somewhere you have to go to a distant land. It's right here. And that's what Adi Shankarji is talking about. And then in verse 44, he says, the self is always eternally present, but looks as if it is not attained due to ignorance. When this ignorance is destroyed, it shines automatically, just like the lost necklace on one's own neck. So, this experience gives direct knowledge of the self without the veil of ignorance and marks the end of all miseries. The whole purpose of life is to get rid of suffering. And suffering is there is because we think we are separate to the one. We think we are separate to Nirgun Brahman. We have fooled ourselves into thinking we are just this body and mind. When we fool ourselves to think that we are just this body and mind, we then have this problem, which is where we go into ignorance. So the self is always eternally present. Remember, just a second ago, I said this formless awareness is always there, but looks as if it is not attained due to ignorance. Because I think I'm this body and mind, I think the formless awareness is something I dip in and out of. It's not a pool where I go in now and then for a swim, or it's not like I take a dip in the Ganges and that's it. No, this Ganges of the formless awareness is eternally there. This Brahman is always there. And because I'm ignorant of my true self, I tend to say I haven't attained it. It's actually my ignorance that says it. This formless awareness is always there. It's always here, always present. I'm the one that says that it is not present because I am this body and mind. And I've get fooled into the play of this very limited existence. But at the end of the day, it's always there. And I have to keep reminding myself about this. So when this ignorance is destroyed, so when I get rid of that, when I start understanding that there is only this formless awareness, this body and mind is just a function of consciousness, is nothing more than that, then this formless awareness shines automatically, just like the lost necklace on one's own neck. So, for example, nowadays we may have the phone in our pocket, but because we're thinking about 1,000 things at once, we forget that the phone is in our pocket, and we look around the house, we go everywhere searching for it. We check every drawer, cupboard, where we even check those places where we know it will never be. And then we suddenly realize that actually the 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 phone was in my pocket. It's not my wallet that I assumed it was. So that's what. So similarly, I wanted to utilize an example that we can understand and use. So, um, so um, So it might appear that our understanding of ourselves as mortal living beings is more natural, so it must be really difficult to get rid of. However, this is not so. And how is it not so? Adi Shankaraji answers that just as a tree pillar falsely assumed to be a person on a dark night, the supreme reality is misunderstood to be a living being. When we see the real form of the living being, this confusion ends forever. So, if we are still confused that we are not Nirgun Brahman, that we are not this formless awareness, then we can assume that we are still confused, that we still think we are this limited body, this limited mind. We can safely assume this. So, for example, you may be walking in the twilight in the forest and you suddenly see a pillar or a tree without its branches, and you may assume it's a person. And but really, when it's when you put your flashlight on and you have a look, you realize it's just a tree or a pillar. Now, this supreme, once you put the light on it, you realize what it really is. And likewise, when you utilize this knowledge of the self, that it is changeless, this supreme reality is then seen for what it is, rather than you mistaking it and mistaking yourself in believing you are this body and mind. What is aware of the body and mind, first of all? What is aware that you have a mind? What is aware that you have a body? Is that awareness affected by the body and mind? No, it's not. And we can experience that through the differing emotions that we go through, the changes that have happened in the body. This awareness has remained untouched by it, unblemished by it. So we know that this supreme reality is eternal, it's changeless. So we can sometimes mistake this supreme reality to be just a living being, but it's not. When we see the real form of the living being, this confusion ends forever. What is the real form? Um, and we'll go into that later on. Uh, so It is our real nature, which is our natural state. What's our real nature? This formless awareness. That is our natural state. That is what we need to go back to. What tends to happen is we go back to our mind instead of going back to the formless awareness. That's the state that we're in. That's the state that we constantly fall back to. But with practice, we should go back to this formless awareness, towards this Nirgun Brahman, this Atma. So it is our real nature, which is our natural state. Once we see it, our assumed reality vanishes as a dream. So, for example, when you wake up from a dream, you realize that whatever happened in your dream was not real. It dissolves away. No longer do you start thinking you're still living in a dream. So, likewise, once you understand that you're just not this body and mind, but you are this formless awareness, then it's like waking up from a dream. And the Mundaka Upanishad gives us a glimpse of that glorious reality which is beyond all confusions and miseries. And that is, I think it's book 2, chapter 2, verse 8, or book 2, verse 2, 8. The knot of the heart gets opened, all doubts are resolved, and all of one's actions get destroyed when one sees the self which is beyond everything else. So think about it. This is something we need to kind of focus upon. The knot of the heart gets opened, all doubts are resolved, and all of one's actions get destroyed when one sees that self which is beyond everything else. What is that thing that is beyond everything else? What is that thing that is always there? This formless awareness. Now we're getting to the tail end of Atma Bodha. We're going to keep mentioning the formless awareness. It's going to be hammered into us, because remember, the one difference that we have from the pseudo non-dualists or the neo-Advaitins is that we have this solid foundation to understand why we are just this. Yeah, why we are just this isness or this formless. We can properly explain that we are this. Thank you for the rose on TikTok. We can explain properly that we are this, simply this. We can explain that there is only consciousness and that everything else is just an appearance of consciousness, is just an object of this consciousness, but it's not the real thing. It doesn't have any reality. It's just an alter state of reality. We are different alters, and that's what it is. But it takes time. We should not assume that people will get it straight away. So that's the purpose of going through this, is so we can hammer into our minds and get used to the fact that we are this Nirgun Brahman, this pure consciousness, this formless awareness. This is real spirituality. Not, I see a lot of this on TikTok nowadays, you know, psychic readings and all this. All this is just, these are all distractions from the real thing. Checking cards and what they call tarot cards, and what's your future going to be? Let's do a reading. All these, it's good entertainment. Do it. No problem. Go and do these things. I have no issue. But the real deal is knowing your true self, knowing that you are this Atma, knowing that you are this Brahman. So that is the whole point. So verse 46, and this is the last one of this chapter of self-realization, that the realization born out of the experience of supreme reality destroys the notions I and mine immediately, just as the sun destroys the confusions about the right direction. So after the realization, the attachment with the world in the form of me and mine totally goes away. Now, what does it mean? You may still be in the world. Yeah. This world, however, will continue to exist like a useless movie or a dream in the waking, of which the realized person is not a part. So when we say that this, oh, hi, Aladdin. Nice to see you. I know you have something on at 8:30. I want to be done by this to watch it because your video is interesting. But nice to see you. Um so yes, so going back to this. So this world, although yes, it will appear as real. You will know it to be actually just a dream. It's just a play. Shakespeare is very right when he says the world is a stage, and it is. This whole world is a stage, and it's a beautiful play that is existing, that is going on. And yes, you have to play your part. You have to do what you need to do. I have to play the part of a husband, of a son, of a brother, of an uncle. I have to do all those things. That's absolutely normal. Yeah, you have to do those things, but you understand that it's just like a movie, it's just like a dream. I and that doesn't mean that you go everywhere and you say, well, this is a dream, this is a movie. No, you don't need. It's an internal silent realization, and you just go. For example, if you keep saying that, that means you've not fully assimilated or acclimatize yourself as the formless awareness. If you have done so, if you had really done this, then you will not need to keep saying this is a dream, this is a reality. Sorry, this is a dream, this is a movie, this is a play. No, you don't need to. For you saying that this, if we keep saying that this is a play, this is a play like on Broadway, or this is a movie, we are getting invested in the movie more and more. We need to be like the blank screen that is unaffected by what the movie shows. So this is the way to see it. I love this type of stuff, by the way. And I get very passionate about it because I find a lot of people when they read something like, "Oh, it's a dream or just a movie," they think that they have to keep repeating this. You don't have to. Just continue to focus on the formless awareness. So when it loses its significance, meaning this movie or dream, it does not matter if it still exists or not. So if it's still there, fine. You don't have to get affected by it. You don't have to be consumed by this. You don't have to be. Let the movie play as it is. Let the drama of the world and the whole existence play as it is. If you want to get involved in it, get involved in it. It does not matter. The thing that matters is that you go back to the formless awareness and you don't get consumed by the drama of the world or the drama of your life. And you just understand, you go back to that formless awareness whenever you feel that you're getting back into the identification that there's only the body and mind, and you ignore the existence, your real existence, which is this formless awareness. So that's the point. Um, to some, it appears, and for others, it does not. It is based on their previous practice and inclination, how they see the reality. Now, the way I do it, because I believe that we have to function in this world, we have to enjoy this world, um, we have to kind of exist in the world. We have relationships. We need to earn money. We need to earn a decent living through honest means, through ethical means, all those things. It's better to say that this world that we see is just a transactional reality. And therefore, you don't need to discard it completely. You can say, this is the way I'm going to transact in this world. This is my exchange with the world. Although I know that none of this is real on the fundamental level, on the baseline existence, but I'm going to play this part of exchanging, of transacting, of relativity. That's all. And I think that is a much easier way where you can um, where you can be in this play of when you're in the transactional reality, when you're in the world, you can have the formless awareness in the background. And then when you want to retreat from the world, you bring the formless awareness to the forefront and take the transactional world to the background. And it's as simple as that. You're still being in non-duality. You're still completely non-dual, no matter what people say. So this is uh, utilize what makes sense for you. If it's easier for you to say that this world doesn't exist and there's only consciousness, if you can do that and still earn a living and still do your best in the world, fine. I have nothing against that, but for me, that is not practical, um, and it's not the message needed today. I don't think it's necessary, but yeah, but each to their own. So now the next one is vision of the wise. So let's go deeper into this understanding. So when the incorrect identification with the body melts and one becomes aware of the reality of this formless awareness, wherever their mind goes, there is meditation. Wow. So, I talked about the transactional reality at the forefront and the formless awareness in the background. Meditation still going on. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. In this stage, the realized person sees with the eyes of knowledge every visible entity as his part or within himself or identical to himself. So, this is exactly what Rupert Spira talks about when he says about the shared being. This is a shared being. When one sees that everything is that same one being, when the formless awareness, when you see that everything in this world, everything in this so-called play of existence, in this transactional reality, is this formless awareness. It's really simple, not difficult at all to understand. I know, for me, maybe not, because I've studied this for so long, but if you have any questions, you can let me know and we can address them. But let's keep going. So, verse 47, a yogi who has correctly realized the reality sees the entire world within him and sees the selves of all living beings as one through their eyes of wisdom. So when the seeker is free from rag and dvesh, which is attachment and aversion, or um, attraction and repulsion, established in this advanced stage of thoughtless meditation, which is nirvikalpa samadhi, which we talked about earlier, they see the world within themselves without any effort. So actually, you see the whole world in this formless awareness, contained in this formless awareness. And which is true. If this formless awareness is all pervading, it cannot be limited in just one person. Yeah, there's no such thing as one Messiah and one messenger and one avatar. No, this formless awareness that was with Krishna is the same formless awareness you have. It's not different. If it was different, then there's no point of non-duality. Yeah, then we completely live in a world of duality. But this is not the message of the sages. The message of the sages is very clear, that there is a non-dual reality. So this is what we need to understand. The world appears to be superimposed on the consciousness, just as blue in the sky or water mirage in the sunlight or silver in the sand. And so, for example, the only reason why we see blue in the sky is because it's a reflection from the sun, and we know that. Or um, for example, we know that the clouds are just passing by the sky, passing through the sky. They're not attached to the sky. Yeah. So that's another way to know. Hi, Sue. Um, so that's another way to understand. And Sri Krishna um, describes this state of oneness in chapter 6, verse 29. A yogi who is firm in yoga sees it the same everywhere. When these Hare Krishnas like to make a difference between Krishna and the world, or Krishna and you, this is where one can say their philosophy does not hold any ground. A yogi who is firm in yoga sees it the same everywhere. They see themselves in others and others in themselves. Uh, that's it. That's so. When Krishna talks about this, that means Krishna also attained the same vision. He saw himself in others and others in himself. Yeah, if he had a different experience, then the whole Gita has no meaning. It has no purpose. So the only reason why the Gita has a meaning is because of this vision of oneness. And that's the vision of the wise, as this chapter talks about. So, verse 48, this entire world is just the self, and that which is not self does not exist. Just as one sees just the clay in all pots of clay, so does he see the self everywhere. The self everywhere. So he, she, it can be anyone. This is a genderless realization. But the book says he. So I'm just gonna, if I do say he, just remember they can apply to she or they. It does whichever pronoun you want to use. I will try to use the more neutral pronouns if I can. If I can't, I do apologize. Um, if I forget, I am sorry. So just as the pots are not different from the clay, so no matter how many pots you may have there that are made of clay, it's still made of that one substance called clay. Thank you, Silence Now. Thank you. This world is not different from the self. The self is everything and anything, and even from the dirtiest thing you can think about to the purest thing you can think of. The self is it. Don't differentiate that the self is something that cannot be impure. Everything is contained in it. The difference is we see impurity and purity. The self doesn't see impurity nor purity because it's non-dual. It has a vision of sameness. So this world is not different from the self. So there's no need to be against the world because everything is the self. So, a lot of people that say that the world is a bad thing, we need to go away from the world, they're giving you a wrong teaching because if the one is in the world, how can it be wrong? And if we say that this one created the world, are we then saying that the one created the world imperfectly? And therefore, if it created it imperfectly, then can the creator also be imperfect? Because that's what we're implying. So we have to really think about the words that we use and say when we're talking about this message. So, and this is how you can catch people out who's giving you a real teaching and who isn't. This is why the foundational knowledge that we're talking about here is absolutely required for Advaita Vedanta, especially Advaita Vedanta, because remember, it's very easy to go into the pseudo non-dual kind of headspace. We want to avoid that. And this is how we avoid it. So just as the different shaped pots are rather temporary and their cause clay is more permanent, this exotic world is temporary and its cause self is eternal. Just as the water waves on the sea are temporary, but the sea water is permanent. In the same way, this world is perishable and the self is the imperishable cause of it. That's just the way to see it. And think about it. You create the world. The world is the creation of your own mind. So therefore, you are the imperishable cause of it. Yeah. The formless awareness, because that's your real self. Now, this world is perishable. It is mithya, but that doesn't mean you have to discard it. For example, it does because we know that the water waves are the same seawater. It's not different. Same way that this world, although perishable, is still the same Brahman. Yeah. The world may think it's different. The world may believe it's separate, but this Brahman is one and the same. So it is just this conscious energy that exists everywhere and nothing else. This formless energy exists everywhere and there's nothing else but this formless energy. The wise refer to it by many names as per their liking. However, it is nameless. Remember, we can try to put a name on this one, but it has no name. It refuses a name. Because the moment we put a name to it, we can start personifying it, we can start deifying it, and we can get ourselves into a huge mess. But this is why it's very easy for us and very right for us. When we say Nirgun Brahman, the only reason why we say Brahman is to remind ourselves it's the ultimate reality and that it's attributeless. If it's attributeless, it means it's nameless too. So these are just pointers, but not names. We need to remember this. Yeah. If I say formless awareness, it's just a pointing, not a name. If I say God, it's just a pointing, not a name. Yeah. Other people may name it as God or whatever, or formless or whatever, or nirgun or whatever. But if you're watching this, if you're following my content, you now know how we function, how we talk about these teachings. So we should be on the same page when we're discussing this. But to make it easier, maybe we do need to give it a name. So if we have to make that concession, that's fine. But we need to make sure we alert at each other that we've made that concession. Yeah, that's all. Yeah. So we can call it God without feeling the baggage of history that's associated with that one name. Yeah. But each to their own. Sometimes I like to avoid calling it God, but sometimes I'm comfortable with it. Um, but yeah. But as it said here, the wise can refer to it by many names as per their liking. It's up to you. If you want to call it Krishna, you call it Krishna. Who am I to say anything? Who is anyone else to say anything? But remember, if you start saying that this is the only name, then you're fanatical. Then it's not real. Then there's duality. But if you say, I prefer to call it Krishna, but it is absolutely nameless, we can agree, we can be on the same page, and we can have a true discussion and a true oneness in understanding. And that is satsang. So, just to emphasize that some of the Upanishads discuss this, like in Chandogya Upanishad, they say all this visible and invisible is definitely the Supreme Lord. In the Kutta Upanishad, there is nothing many in this world. And again, the Chandogya Upanishad says whatever names we can give to different pots underlying clay only is real. So, you can call the pot by many names, like this is a circular pot, a square pot, a triangular pot, but at the end of the day, it's made out of clay. Its existence is clay, and that's all it is. So we can call this Brahman, this awareness, by many names, but it doesn't really matter. So the only real thing is that it's this awareness that is always there, always present, and is beyond all names and forms and images that we would like to superimpose upon it. So the next chapter is liberation in this life, and that's verse 49. A wise person is said to be liberated while alive, so jivan mukt, when he leaves his previously assumed limitations and attributes and becomes eternal, conscious, and blissful, just as the captive worm converts into a wasp due to constantly thinking about it. I didn't know about that, so I don't know whether that's a real thing, but let's utilize a caterpillar. A caterpillar converts into a butterfly, maybe by constantly thinking about it. So to explain this, when the gross and subtle limitations which are imposed on the self are discarded in totality, the seeker becomes one with the reality while alive. This is the whole purpose, is to do it while we're alive, not to do it when we die and assume that we'll become one with this oneness, or we will we will merge into this formless state, or we will go to heaven or whatever. We have to do right now, while we're alive, while we're breathing, while we're functioning. We have to achieve liberation now. That's what is being said here. Due to the constant investigation, pondering, and focus over this formless awareness, the seeker gets established in that eternal glory. In this stage, the seeker becomes free from all their previous actions except those which are running and started to give their results. We call these remaining actions as parabdha karma, or the remaining part of destiny. So you can't avoid karma, it will still appear. You have to exhaust them, and therefore you continue on being liberated, addressing your karma, and just being that awareness. That's all. Um, so these are not destroyed because, like a moving arrow or spoken words, they have started giving their results, which can't be stopped in the middle. So, for example, for the past 30 odd years of my life, I can't ignore all the actions that I've done or the things that I've said. I've got to understand that they can't just be extinguished in the middle. I have to address them. Their consequences will I will face those consequences right now in this life. But I will deal with it in liberation. That's the way to perceive that. So, verse 50, after crossing the ocean of delusion and killing the demons of likes and dislikes, a fully peaceful yogi who rests in their soul shines in their glory. So, as long as there is happiness within, a person tries to search it in external objects. This is what we've been doing for the whole of our lives: is trying to seek uh, and desire external objects, thinking they will give us happiness. Once we experience the everlasting supreme bliss within us, which is this formless awareness, and we fully identify and associate with that formless awareness, then there is nothing outside which could be similar, that could be pleasant on a similar fashion. And it's true. I've sometimes mentioned this in my podcast and sometimes in these lives, that once you've had a taste or a glimpse of this formless awareness, the beauty of this, the love of this, the intoxication of this, you don't want anything else. You don't seek anything else. No matter how appealing that chocolate cake can be for me, it will not be as blissful as being in the self remembrance of this formless awareness. By retreating back to this formless awareness, nothing beats it. Nothing beats talking about it with you right now. Yet nothing beats it. Is this is what is there's no joy like this. There's no thrill as exhilarating as this. And that's the truth for me. I don't know if it's true for everybody, but it's true for me. If it is true for you, let me know. And it's just nice to know that people feel the same thing. So, all other pleasures in the world are at best a tiny fraction of this inner peace. Very true. Everything that you enjoy in this world is temporary, it doesn't last long. It's literally of a few seconds. And then you're on to the next thing. But this formless awareness, there is no next thing. It's it is it is the thing right now and the next thing. It's what is eternally there. In our need for external entities to be happy lies our bondage and impermanence of this happiness. So when we feel that we need these external things to be happy, that's where we become bounded, where we fall under the false identification, and that's where all the mess starts appearing. So verse 51, Adi Shankaraji says, for a yogi who has relinquished the attachment for external and transitory pleasures and perceives the pleasure of the self, the knowledge shines forth inside like a lamp placed within a pot. As we know, once a lamp is placed in the pot, the light consumes the whole pot. Likewise, when we perceive the joy of the self, the joy of that formless awareness, that knowledge you could say overwhelms the darkness that we once had, or it removes any false identification that we have. So a yogi is not attached to anything which is not permanent or external. Remember, that doesn't mean that the yogi doesn't enjoy those things or doesn't consume those things. They may consume, but they're not attached to it. They know that these things are transitory. They are not. They're not going to last. The one thing that they will go back to always is this formless awareness. This formless awareness is the eternal happiness. And that's what they will go back to. That is where bliss is. So, non attachment to all external objects, which includes their own physical body, is one important characteristic of an enlightened person. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna does say in chapter 2, verse 71, a person who gives up all their desires, is without any craving, is unattached, and is without pride. They attain peace. So Sri Krishna makes it very simple, very easy for us to understand. This is all we desire, just to be in formless awareness. And it's not like you have to desire it, you're always in it. Yeah, you always are. There is only the formless awareness. Then verse 52, even though a sage stays in the midst of limiting adjuncts, he is unattached to them like space. Even though he knows everything, he remains like an ignorant person, is unattached and moves like the wind. So, externally, he has no purpose left. That yogi, that sage has no purpose left. So the activities of their life may look like that of a child or a mad person, but they are eternally peaceful within. So they will have this childlike innocence to them. They are non-disturbing to everyone, engrossed within him, and takes no interest in trivial matters. But if someone requires their help, uh, that sage will provide their opinion calmly without any expectation. And that's what happens. So the sage doesn't stop functioning in the world, still functions, but no longer do they care about the gossips of the world, the limiting joys of the world. That is no longer going to be the matter. But if they want to help someone, if someone needs their help and needs their guidance, uh, the sage will provide that calmly without expecting an award, yeah, or a reward of any kind or appreciation. Like Adi Shankar, as you mentioned, that person's unattached. Therefore, they're going to act like a child. The child doesn't think about getting appreciated for doing something. They move on to the next thing. Likewise. And just remember that this sage will know everything, but will remain with the appearance of an ignorant person. So don't get fooled. Again, at the same time. Then verse 53, when the limiting adjuncts are dissolved, the sage becomes one with all-pervading supreme reality without any distinction, as water merges into water, space merges into space, and light merges into the light. So when the remaining part of the destiny of that person, the fate of that individual gets exhausted, when their prarabdha karma gets exhausted, the sage, who was ever free of their actions, leaves their body and attains a final liberation. They merge in the supreme reality without any distinction. So that will be the eventual goal. And that's what Adi Shankaraji says. And that's liberation in this life. We achieve it in this life. It's all about this life. Right. So we're now in the final chapter of, which is titled Nature of Reality. And in this, there is around quite a number of verses, but we're going to go through them. We won't need to spend much time on them because these are things we can meditate upon. So, verse 54, gaining which nothing more remains to be gained, the experience of the pleasure beyond which no other pleasure is desired, knowing which more remains to be known, know that to be the supreme self, Brahman, this formless awareness. So, Brahman, the supreme reality, is the greatest gain. There's nothing bigger or better. Thank you for the likes, VR1 Gaming. That's the biggest thing. This formless awareness is the greatest gain. There is nothing better or bigger than that. That is the greatest pleasure, and that is the greatest knowledge. There's no PhD can be comparable to this. No greatest pleasure in this world can come close to this. And nothing that you may achieve or attain in this world can come close to this. This is the supreme thing to attain. So once you attain this formless awareness, what else is left? Once you experience the joy of this formless awareness, what else is left? Once you know that this formless awareness is what you are, what else is left? This is what we need to contemplate and think about. Verse 55, seeing which nothing else remains to be seen, becoming what there is no further birth, knowing what there is nothing more to be known, know that to be the supreme self. So these verses are describing what Brahman is. So we know that Brahman has no further birth. This body will have our Jeev will have no further birth. There's nothing more to be known than this formless awareness, and nothing else remains more to be seen in the world. We know the formless awareness, that is everything. So Brahman is the ultimate reality to be seen. It is the only state of being which assures the absence of rebirth, and that's the ultimate thing to understand, that there is no rebirth for that person who understands what they really are, which is this Atma, which is this formless awareness. So, verse 56, that which exists everywhere, whether it is up, down, and across, complete in itself, has the form of existence, consciousness, and bliss, without a second, infinite, eternal, and one, know that to be the supreme self. So Brahman exists everywhere. Nothing can be added to it. It's eternal. It is Satchitananda, which is truth, consciousness, bliss. It has no end, and it's completely non-dual because it's without a second. Yeah, this is what's being understood and established here. Verse 57, that which remains or is seen according to the sayings of the Upanishads, after negating everything which is different from it, that which is indestructible, indivisible, blissful, and one, know that to be the supreme self, Brahman. So again, using the statement of the Upanishads, which is neti neti, not this, not even this, in renouncing the body. So removing the body, removing the sense organs, removing from the sense organs from the conception of self, leaving aside the boundaries of space and time, whatever indestructible, seamless, and continuously blissful pleasure remains, that is the supreme reality. So once we get rid of everything, including space, including time, so what we're looking at is something eternally present and locationless, that pure awareness, that formless awareness, that is where bliss is. that is a, that is bliss that never ever dissolves away, depletes in any way. It's full. This blissfulness is always full. You cannot, this is the intoxication that is beyond, that can never, you can never be taken away from this intoxication, this ecstasy. This is what the Sufis talk about. And this is exactly what Adi Shankaraji is talking about. You cannot get rid of this wonderful ecstasy of Brahman, formless awareness. So, verse 58, depending on the tiny fraction of that indivisible bliss, all the deities, the devtas, like Brahma, become blissful according to their ranks. So, the bliss of supreme reality is the root cause of the tiny pleasures which other deities enjoy. Moreover, this bliss is eternal, while the bliss which others enjoy gets destroyed during universal dissolution. So, although there may be deities, elements of nature that are existing right now, but and as much as they can be enjoyed and they may be blissful in their own way and happy in their own way, at the end of the day, the universe will dissolve away, will go through dissolution, and therefore, what remains is formless awareness. When this universe goes, when this universe disappears, dissolves, what remains? Only formless awareness. And this is what Adi Shankaraji is saying. So, and to further explain this, he says, various water bodies such as ponds, lakes, rivers are the limited source of water, but the ocean is the unlimited source of water. Similarly, the deities such as Brahma, Indra, Agni, Vayu, etc., enjoy the limited bliss, but the supreme reality is the source of infinite bliss. In our worldly experience, we observe the love in various relationships like mother, father, wife, son, daughter, but where the love for self is seen. So when we understand we are this formless awareness, what happens to the love that we have for others? It becomes limitless. When we think about it in our relationships, we have expectations for our children, for our parents, for our siblings, for our spouses, and we limit them in that way. But if we saw them as a formless awareness, our approach would be totally different. Instead of, sometimes I think we put too much expectations on others, and this limits their growth. Actually, we think that we're doing things that will make them grow, and we'll be pushing them in the right direction, not just children but even adults, sometimes with us. But sometimes we should let things naturally resolve themselves, because when someone learns from that natural growth, it's much better than being forced to grow, which could cause resentment later. So even with spirituality, not everyone will have to go on this path that we're talking about now. It's absolutely fine if someone wants to worship the deities or the devas, like Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. They can. There's no problem. If we should have no problem with that, because maybe they need that right now. We can show them, like for example, there's these big boards that display adverts when we're on the highway or the motorway. If you see that board, that hoarding, does that get offended if you miss it? No. It The message is there. It's up to you to follow that message if it's applicable to you. Likewise with spirituality, like the stuff that we're talking about here. If someone's ready to listen to it, fine. If they're not, let them carry on. If they want to continue doing Murti Puja, if they want to continue going, following the guru that they follow, or whatever, let them. Who are we to limit anyone or stop anyone? Let them continue. So this is the thing. When we understand the whole picture, there is no need to limit anyone or limit any relationship we have. If you see everyone as a formless awareness, our relationships become more fulfilling and more beautiful. Thank you for the likes. Truly appreciate it. And thank you for sharing the live. Thank you. Thank you, Baji. So let's look at verse 59. Connected to their consciousness and its associations, all objects and their worldly behaviors become possible. Hence, that reality pervades everything, just as the butter pervades every drop of milk. So whatever love we observe in various relationships has its basis or foundation in self-love. It all it all appears from Brahman, all appears from the formless itself. This love is pervaded everywhere. We just feel a tiny part of it in our relationships. Yeah, this what a beautiful way for us to understand that the love we have for other people is actually eternal and vast, is limitless. So we don't have to limit our love for others. It's, you know, when we put people into the box of relationships, then we're only giving a fraction of that eternal love, that vast love, that boundless love that is there. Yeah. So it may be argued that if Brahman or the supreme reality pervades the visible forms such as bodies, it must get destroyed on the destruction of the visible forms, as forms are temporary. So if a body dies, then that means the self must die, right? For example, we can see that if milk is destroyed, the butter which pervades it will also be destroyed likewise. So, how can indestructibility be maintained by the supreme reality? This is a question that may appear from this example that is used by Adi Shankaraji. So, then, because Adi Shankaraji is a genius and is a complete G, he will respond to this doubt that we may get. So, in verse 60, he says, know that to be Supreme Self, Brahman, which is neither big nor small, nor short nor long, unborn, without decay, without form, quality, caste, name, etc. So, this Supreme Reality is changeless and imperishable. Just as space is not destroyed with the destruction of the pot which contains it, so does the supreme reality is not destroyed by the destruction of the body and other visible forms it pervades. So let's look into this. So first of all, this Brahman is neither big nor small. So we, whether we're tall or short, this Brahman is neither tall nor short. This Brahman is not, it doesn't weigh anything. It is unborn. It doesn't have a birth. It's without decay. It cannot erode in any way. It has no form. It has no quality. It has no caste. It has no name, etc. It has no age. So because of that, it's always there. Now, for example, if I have this this cup here. Now, now the space in this cup is the same space even when I destroy this cup. If I completely get rid of this cup, this bottle, the space remains. So likewise, this formless awareness remains regardless of the body being here or not. So that's the way to understand that. So verse 61, that by the light of which shines the sun, moon, etc., that which does not shine in the light of something else, that which shines the existence of everything, know that to be the Supreme Self. A bit of a like a paradoxical thing, but this is the way to explain the deep spiritual wisdom. We have to use paradox to explain things. So, just as the sunlight makes it possible for us to do our work without being entangled anywhere, so does the power or light of supreme reality make it possible for the sun, the moon, our intellect and mind to shine and work. So, using light as a metaphor of knowledge, um, and our intellect and our mind. Um, and again, even physically being the power behind the sun. Um, so, yeah, verse 62, that which pervades everything internally and externally shines the entire world. The supreme reality shines along with this world, just as fire itself shines with the heated iron ball. Sometimes we've seen where something is really hot, and it's you can see the redness of the iron, or um, the redness of the glass that's being put in an inferno or a huge furnace. It shines by itself. Yeah. The fire and the iron is shining. The both are shining. Likewise, this reality shines, and so does this world shine. So just as fire envelops the iron ball internally as well as externally, so does the reality surround everything from all sides. So remember, we talk about this shared being, this formless awareness being the shared being of all that is. That's all. That's simple it is. How simple it is. So, verse 63, the supreme reality is distinct from this world. So, at one moment we're saying it's one and the same. Now we're saying that the supreme reality is distinct from this world. Nothing else exists other than this supreme reality. Whatever appears to exist other than this supreme self is false, like a mirage. So, for example, if you're in the desert and you think you can see an oasis there, but actually it's just a mirage. It's not really there. You're basically hallucinating. Um, Likewise, when we see this, we think of this world, actually, we know this world is going to disappear, dissolve away, will go through dissolution. And what remains is formless awareness. And we can visually, mentally comprehend this. We can comprehend the removal of the universe, removal of space and time. And what remains is your awareness of the removal of space and time and the removal of the universe. What remains is formless awareness. And this is exactly what Adi Shankaraji is saying. So now the most startling argument is given that the world is unreal like a mirage. It only appears to be real. So only this supreme reality exists. There is nothing else that lasts. And that's true. This universe will go one day. We will go one day. Our um, um, relationships with others will die one day. The people that we love will go one day. All that will go. This whole world will one day go away. What was here 100 years ago is not here today. What was here millions of years ago is not here today. Everything has changed and gone accordingly. But what has remained is this formless awareness, because we know that in our own experience has remained changeless. So therefore, it must be changeless prior to our own existence as this body and form. And to emphasize this point, Sri Krishna says in chapter 7, verse 7, that Arjun, there is nothing else higher than me. This entire world is woven in me as the beads of gems on a string. So again, just saying that this whole world is just woven into this one. Yeah, it's distinct, it's there, but yet distinct. Yeah. So verse 64, Whatever is seen or heard is not different from Brahman or the absolute reality. On realization of the truth, that Brahman alone is seen as eternal, blissful consciousness. So, for a knower of the supreme reality, every action, howsoever small or insignificant, is full of this one Brahman, this oneness, this formless awareness. That's what it is completely. So in verse 65, he says that all-pervading, eternal, blissful consciousness is seen within when one observes it through the eye of knowledge, of Gyan. From the ignorant eye, it is not seen, just as a blind person does not see the shining sun. So a pure mind which has been developed through the eye of knowledge, through Gyan, of what is real and unreal. Remember, the real being changeless, unreal being changing. Through perseverance, intent, and reverence, can only see this reality directly. You have to have love for this, passion for this journey. You really want this. Yeah, this is to understand this absolute reality. It has to really consume every ounce of your being, and every ounce of your being has to go towards it. That's how we must feel. For others, it remains unknown as if it does not exist. They too can see it if they try it with all of their heart. So it's possible for others if they want to, if they try for that. So to emphasize this point, Sri Krishna explains who can and who cannot see the self. In chapter 15, verse 10, to this self, while it is departing from the body or staying in it or appearing to be mixed with the attributes of nature, the deluded persons do not see, but those who possess the eye of knowledge see it. So you need to have that Gyan Chakshu, the Gyan vision, the drishti of the Gyan, the vision of the Gyan, the vision of knowledge, the vision of wisdom. That is what helps us get rid of delusion. That's what gets rid of the wrong identification towards the body and mind. When we rightfully start identifying as Brahman, as formless awareness, we move forward. Verse 66, we're nearly to the end of this now. So when the fire of knowledge is increased by the listening to the Upanishads and all the other scriptures, and the living being gets sufficiently illuminated, inspired by it, that being becomes free from all impurities and shines like gold themselves. So basically, it has more to do with our capability to face the supreme reality, to face the formless awareness. If we become pure by following the continuous and enthusiastic practice of Upanishadic teachings, we attain the capability to realize the supreme reality and shine like pure gold in our eternal glory. So for that, we need to be in the company of the guru, be in the company of the teacher, learn the scriptures, read the scriptures, understand the scriptures, contemplate on the messages, practice the messages, then we will shine forth. Yeah, we have to put in the effort. Nothing happens like that. We have to put in the effort. We have to put in time. It's essential that we do that. And then verse 67, the self is the son of knowledge. The self meaning Brahman. When it arises in the space of the heart, it destroys the darkness of ignorance. It pervades and sustains all and shines itself and shines everything else. Everything is Brahman. Yeah. There is only Brahman, not that everything is Brahman. There's only Brahman. Yeah. And everything is a reflection of that Brahman. So when this knowledge rises in our heart, like the sun destroys every trace of ignorance which is remaining in us. So like the sun, when it rises in the morning, it lights up the whole town that we're in. Likewise, when the sun or the light of this knowledge, of this wisdom rises in us, we then see that Brahman is the only thing in existence. Yeah. Everything is a reflection of that Brahman. That's what happens. Then the last verse, which is verse 68, one who does not take care of the direction, location, time, etc., and is always committed to all pervading, destroyer of the duality of heat and cold, eternal and stainless pleasure in his heart, without performing any actions whatsoever, he knows it all and becomes immortal. So once a person takes that sacred bath in the light of self knowledge, in the light of formless awareness, no other pilgrimage can further purify that person. There is nothing more to be known, and there is no fear of death. And thus ends the Atma Bodh, which is composed by Shankaracharya. So today we have completed this beautiful text, and really, um, we after reading this, I feel my knowledge has further developed and further changed and further um, has further improved by reading this, and I hope it has for you, because the whole point that we what we do on this YouTube channel with these lives, and also on TikTok, is to understand this reality and understand this reality and build a strong foundation that we should never get fooled into thinking we are this body and mind again, that we should be established in the formless awareness, that we should come back to it. So the um that is the aim. And let me know your thoughts, let me know your contemplations, let me know what you're going to do with this wisdom. It is, yes, absolutely, Sue, it is a very beautiful text, absolutely amazing. I actually enjoyed this more than Tattva Bodh, although Tattva Bodh was very necessary. But for me, Atma Bodh was more mystical, and it forced you in a way to elevate yourself to the formless awareness. It didn't want you to stay in the identification of the body and mind. So yeah, I really felt that. And yet thank you, and Silence Now, thank you. You said thank you for being such a clear conduit of truth. Thank you for seeing the truth. This this truth that is shared here is one of the sages, of the masters, and I'm really just emphasizing what the spiritual giants are talking about, and they've done all the hard work. So I'm just piggybacking off them. um, but without their teachings, I don't think we would be able to go further. So they are. I thank them a million times, and I bow to them a million times for providing this knowledge and wisdom to us, so we can discuss it today and get rid of any. Uh, get rid of any or get rid of any iota of ignorance where we can fall in the trap of neo Advaita or pseudo non duality. Tonpa Shenrub speaks. Oh, my friend, would you say that everything is a reflection of Brahman? Is the same sort of concept that everything is Brahman experiencing itself? Yes, absolutely. I would say that's exactly what it is. We, according to what we feel more comfortable with, we can use that language. So if you feel that it's easier to say that everything is Brahman experiencing itself, that's fine. If you feel that it's better to say that everything is a reflection of Brahman, that's absolutely fine. They're both pointing towards the same thing, which is that there is only that formless awareness. There is only Brahman. So whichever one works for you, go for that and just ride that wave, basically. But know that the ocean is formless awareness. I don't even know how I come up with this stuff. Sometimes, um, I sometimes just sit down and I think, how did I come up with some of the commentary on this? And where did I come up with this knowledge? I never read this stuff, or I never um, read some of the stuff that I'm saying out loud to you when I'm not reading the text. I don't know. It surprises me all the time, which is why there is always non-doership. This is the sign of non-doership, when you don't even know how you've come up with this knowledge. Therefore, I can never say, "Oh, it's Rahul's knowledge." You know, it's interesting. Um, I'm sure some of you have experienced the same as well. So, as we've dealt with Atma Bodh, next week what we're going to do is go through some videos, and we're going to do some reactions. So, if you're on TikTok, you want to sign up or subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I will be doing reaction videos on there. Even though I may have it live on here, you won't be able to hear the video that I'm reacting to. So if you want to know my YouTube channel, one, it's the Bearded Mystic Podcast, but you can also find it in the profile on my TikTok page. For those on YouTube, if it's your first time watching this, and you want to see more of the work that we do here, next week, do first subscribe to the channel. But then, if you want to be notified about any of the lives that I do, you can. I think you can ask to be notified on my YouTube channel, but also on my Discord server, I do post that. What I will do on YouTube, sorry, on TikTok, I will start putting it up as a story, and same on Instagram. So I need to just get better with that stuff. I'm so bad with promoting stuff of my own stuff. I feel like I'm spamming people, so it kind of, I feel weird about it. But then I realize that everyone else is spamming each other anyway. So why am I getting bothered by it? So what text are we going to look at next after we've done the reactions? So next week, I'm not just going to do reactions to the pseudo non-dualists. I'm also going to do reactions to just other videos, just again to enhance our knowledge and enhance our understanding of this non-dual self. So um, some people have mentioned other teachers or other YouTube channels, so I will be looking at those first. I think one was of UG. I can't remember the full name of the channel, but that, and then there's also another one which is again, I forgot the name. I am subscribed to them, so I will um I will be reacting to those videos. But let me tell you what next text I'm going to look at. So we did Tattva Bodh, Atma Bodh. Now we're going to look at Aparoksh Anubhuti. Yeah. So that's what we're going to look at, Aparoksh Anubhuti. So that will be the text that we will look at, which is basically the direct experience of reality. So that's going to be good. It's going to be interesting. So we will do that. So that's to look forward to. So next week, not just next week, I may do this for the next 2 weeks where I'm reacting to videos, and then we'll look at uh, Aparokshanabhuti. So I think that's what we'll do, because I think Aparokshanabhuti is a bit more of a longer text, if I'm not wrong. So we can start that. And what we may do, if it's a long text, yeah, it is a very long text. What we will do is we'll do a bit, then we'll look at the text, and then we'll alternate between the text and reaction videos. Maybe that's what we'll do. Instead of just doing reaction videos for the next 2 weeks, we'll alternate between the two. I don't know. I'll decide as we go along, that's the way I function. Right, it's been wow. We've done 1 hour and 30 minutes of this. It's been I felt like time has just passed by. So yeah, what we'll do, I will probably I'll try and come on tomorrow. If I'm on tomorrow, I'll do a reaction video. I have a few things to do tomorrow, so um hopefully if I'm on, it'd be between 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 5. If I do decide to come on, uh if not, then the next time I'll be on will be either Monday or Wednesday. Tuesday I'll be busy, but Monday or Wednesday, depending on what goes on. But yeah, it's really nice seeing you all. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for um, being part of this. And I shall see you all very soon. Okay, take care. Bye.